In today's video, I'm going to go in depth and tell you everything that you need to know so you can find that business class seat to Italy using points. We're going to talk about how we can get there from Australia, including which are the best routes that have the best reward seat availability. I'm then going to talk about what type of points you need. Can you use Qantas points? Can you use Velocity points? Or what else should we be using? I'm then going to discuss how many Qantas or Velocity points you need in order to fly there. And once we have a good idea on the requirements, I'm then going to tell you how we can go about finding the reward flights by giving you an effective way to search these seats and then how you go about booking it. So if that sounds useful for you, I would really appreciate giving this video a thumbs up and leaving a comment letting me know that these sort of videos are helpful to you. So with that in mind, let's get straight into the video. And the first thing that I want to discuss is what the best routes are and how we actually go about getting from Australia to Italy. Now, the most efficient way of getting from Australia to Italy is actually the direct flight, which is Perth to Rome. And while this is the most efficient, the bad news is that Qantas almost never release any business class reward seats on this flight. The exception being when they have random reward seat releases, which is very, very uncommon. I think I've seen one in the last 2 years on this particular route. So in today's video, I'm not even going to discuss trying to find a reward seat on this route because Qantas rarely release any. Now, one of the most common ways of getting there is going to be catching that Sydney to London flight with the included stopover into Singapore. And then once you're in London, you would then catch a flight from London into Rome. This would be the most popular way that people are trying to get into Rome. The drama is, again, there's very little reward seats available on this route too. So if those are the flights that you're looking for in order to try to get into Europe and Italy in particular, then stop doing that. Let's talk about what we can do. The best thing that we can do to try to get to Italy is actually by keeping things fairly broad and being very flexible with our route. We want to start looking from flights from all major Australian airports. I'm talking about Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, and Perth. When you're using seats.aero, which I will discuss later on, this is an airport code called AUL. Now, because Europe is so far away, you're going to have a minimum of one stopover. And the good thing about Europe is that there are so many options that we can use for stopovers. ASA is going to be the airport code that searches all of the major airports in Asia. We want to use Doha, we want to use Dubai, and we want to use Abu Dhabi. So our first flight will be from one of the major Australian airports, flying into one of those stopover cities, and then we'll connect that flight into Rome with Rome's airport code being FCO. Now, I am going to give you some of the exact specific routes that you can do in order to get there, but I just wanted to get you thinking on some of the different options that we can do in order to get into Italy. So now that we have an idea on which cities we can fly into for our stopover and then onwards into Rome, let's talk about which points are going to be the best. Now, if you just have Qantas points, that will be okay, but it is going to limit some of your options. A better frequent flyer program to have would be the Velocity frequent flyer program. They do have more options getting in and out of Europe, but even better points to have are going to be Amex Platinum membership points. I talk about this in almost every single video now, but Amex Platinum membership points will give you the flexibility at transferring those points to about 15 different airlines. The key airline programs that we want to transfer our Amex Platinum membership points to are going to be Qantas, Velocity, Emirates, Etihad, Qatar, Singapore Airlines, Cathay Pacific. Knowing that we have access into all these different membership programs is really going to increase our chances at getting a reward seat into Italy. If you don't have Amex Platinum membership points, the next best thing would be having both Qantas and Velocity points. If you have points in both of these systems, it will be fairly easy getting to Italy. So now let's talk about how many points we actually need and what are the exact routes that we want to be looking for. So I'm actually going to give you 4 examples here. 2 of those will be when using Qantas points and the other 2 will be when using Velocity points. The first example will be from one of Australia's major airports such as Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane. Then you'll want to look for flights arriving into Kuala Lumpur. So your first flight will be from Sydney to Kuala Lumpur, for example, and then you'll want to catch another flight from Kuala Lumpur to Paris. Once you're in Paris, you can then catch a 3rd flight into Rome. At the time of recording this video, I did have a look and there are reward seats on this route. It's going to cost you 209,000 points. The next way that we can fly business class to Rome is going to be on Emirates. You would look for a flight from Sydney, Melbourne, or Brisbane into Dubai, and then Dubai into Rome. It's going to cost you a little bit less because now you're just 2 flights 180,000 points for business class the entire way. The only bad thing about this, Emirates have really high flight taxes. You're probably going to be paying about $2,000 in flight taxes when you go down this path. My personal favorite route to get to Rome would be the next one. That's going to be using Velocity Points from Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane, flying into Doha. This will be on Qatar's Q Suites business class product, which is probably going to be your best business class product getting to Rome. Once you're in Doha, you would then catch a second flight from Doha into Rome, 179,000 Velocity Points for these flights. And your flight taxes will be about half of what it is compared to Emirates, probably under $1,000. Now the last route you can actually do with both Velocity Points and Qantas Points, and that's going to be Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane flying into Singapore. You'll then catch a second flight from Singapore into Rome. Now because Velocity partner with Singapore Airlines, there's going to be a lot more reward availability through the Velocity Frequent Flyer program, but Qantas do have plenty of flights on Qantas, British Airways and Emirates flying to Singapore as well. The only drama is the amount of reward availability will be far less compared to Velocity. But now that we know how many points we need, which routes we should be looking for, and the type of points that we're after, how do we go about actually finding those reward seats? For this particular example, I would use seats.aero. Seats.aero is an amazing tool. It's going to scrape all the data on the Qantas and Velocity websites and give it to you in a nice, easy, searchable way. You can also filter through date and business class availability using seats.aero. When using seats.aero, I would type in AUL as the first airport. This is an airport code for all of Australia's major airports. The first flight I'm looking for will depend on which type of points I have, but it will be either SIN for Singapore, DOH for Doha, DXB for Dubai, or KUL for Kuala Lumpur. When I'm looking through this data for the first flight, I just want to figure out which months have the best availability. I don't want to get too specific on a date just yet. Just try and figure out which month have the most availability. Then from here, type in your second flight, which is going to be from the arrival city of your first flight, and you'll be flying into FCO, which stands for Rome's major airport. Now what we want to do here is match up the dates, which is why in that first flight you just wanted to figure out which month have the most availability, and in an ideal world it will also match up with your second flight. So hopefully we've determined maybe that May have reward availability for our first flight. So I would then search flights in May on our flight that we're departing. So let's use Kuala Lumpur, for example. So KUL into FCO, and I would look for flights in May. And now all we're doing is trying to match up the dates. So you probably want a minimum of a 1-night stopover in Kuala Lumpur. So I would try and find the first flight with a 1-night stopover and then have a second flight departing the following day. Obviously, you need to play around with this to make sure it all works, but that's how you go about finding these flights. Once you've actually found the flights that you want using the seats.aero site, you then go about booking it by just jumping on the airline's direct website and booking it directly through there. Now, something important to note is always keep your Amex membership points in your Amex Points account until you need to actually book those flights. Assuming your airline programs are linked through your Amex portal, that transfer from Amex into your airline loyalty program will only take a couple of minutes, so keep them as Amex Points until you're about to book your flights. You now know exactly which routes we should be looking for, what type of points we need, how many points we need, and how you can go about booking those flights. I hope that this sort of video has been useful to you, and if you do want me to do any other destinations in the future, just leave a comment letting me know. If you do need more help, just check the links in the video description or write me a comment. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.